else experiencing this kind of like disconnect and just general disinterest in the job search. I just feel like I don't care anymore. And it's so bad, like, because I graduated in 2023, so I did work a little bit in my field. I did have a job in accounting for a little bit. Well, right now I'm still waiting tables. My parents are just really getting on me because they're like, Olivia, you need to act like you're unemployed. Like, you're getting comfortable with your job. And it's like, no, I'm not getting comfortable. Like, in fact, I want to get out of serving. Like, it's great for what it is, but, you know, it's ultimately not what I want to do. And I do want to get out. But this other life, this like 9 to 5 life doesn't seem very attractive to me anymore. And I just feel really disillusioned with the whole corporate life because, you know, for all the shit that you guys go through, at the very least, you could have job security, but you don't. Like, I'm really realizing that there's no such thing as job security. People used to tell me, oh, get a government job. Y'all see what's happening with the federal jobs? Like, their whole department's being laid off out of nowhere, no notice, no nothing. You would think that with everything that y'all go through and how much time and energy you pour into these jobs that they would treat you better, and they don't. I have to move back in with my parents, so it's just something I'm thinking about because I know they're going to be on my ass about the job search and things like that. And it's not even that I'm lazy, it's just that I don't want to fight for something I don't actually want. It just doesn't seem worth it. Not only do we not have the same level of job security that our parents and our grandparents had, but we also can't afford anything. Even if we do have these jobs, even if we do have this job security, a lot of people can't even afford to pay their rent. At least back then, you guys could pay your rent. You know, you could pay your rent, you can buy your car, you could buy houses, you could afford to eat, you could afford to have fun. We don't have that same reality. The way prices have gone up in comparison to the way wages and salaries have stayed stagnant is insane, and nobody's talking about it. We don't have the same reality that our parents and grandparents did, and they don't want to acknowledge that. What we're fighting for is not the same thing that you guys were experiencing. So it's like, I'm fighting so hard to get some 9 to 5 that's going to pay me barely enough to rent a room in a house and live in fear every day of being laid off on a random Tuesday. And then in the midst of that, I don't even know if I can put food on the table, or if I can put food on the table, I don't know if I can put gas in my car. And if I can put gas in my car, I don't know if I can have fun because I need to put food on the table and gas in my car. Our money is not going as far as it used to go. And I feel like we're getting gaslit about that. Like, home prices, tuition prices, like the way everything has gone up and they're paying us the same amount of money is insane. So excuse me if I have no interest in fighting for my life in corporate America. I'm sorry.
I don't think anybody is forcing you to fight for your life inside of corporate America outside of your parents. See, let me give you a little bit of a history lesson. Prior to the previous generation that had somewhat of a secure, and it wasn't really secure because if you go industry by industry, a lot of industries went through a cycle. They ultimately was laying people off, bringing people back, laying people off. As a matter of fact, if you go back to the 90s, and this is one of the biggest conversations that's being had right now, not amongst liberals, but obviously conservatives, was that Clinton actually laid off up almost 400,000 federal employees. And so I'm assuming that she's not familiar with that because she wasn't outside during that time. Now, I wasn't necessarily outside, but I was old enough to realize what was going on as far as what the economy was and what was happening. I was also familiar with the fact that if you go back to the 80s, my father used to tell me that the 80s was one of the worst decades of all time. Even though I was born in the 80s was one of the worst decades of all time because it was a lot of downsizing in the auto industry in particular, where, you know, I was born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. You had standards being raised as far as what the EPA would allow for automakers to be able to, put out gas mileage. It was a affordability crisis. Crime was running rampant in multiple different cities, including New York City. If you go and watch some of the old movies from the 70s and the 80s, like The Warriors and things like that, you can see all of the crime was rampant and everything was tagged. And so Gen Z then has this disillusion with themselves, like everything has always been good. No, but everything has always been cyclical, meaning that there's always been corrections in the market. It's always been corrections in housing. It's always been up and downs when it comes to affordability and interest rates. As a matter of fact, I would tell you that if you talk to some of your grandparents, interest rates was in the teens. It wasn't 7%, 8%. So affordability wasn't based off of this. But you also didn't have everybody getting Klarna. You didn't have everybody having high credit card bills. People mostly pay for cash. And I also remember some of my grandparents, both on my father's side and my mother's side, working two jobs for their entire lives. Entire lives. Grandparent on my father's side, because he brought my father and his brother up from Dawson, Georgia. He was working at the plant while also building his construction company. On my mother's side, he was working at the post office and he did something else. And then that was when you seen people from those eras would say stuff like they would just bring their check home. My grandmother had a whole bunch of kids and she would pay all of the bills and do whatever it is she did. And he would just pretty much work. And so this is a misconception of what life was like back in the day from men and women and people, and y'all have more rights, y'all have more availability, more options than ever before. You can make as much money as you want to make. You don't have any discrimination, and you have unlimited resources. You can go to college, you can get a degree, and all of this stuff. What I see, honestly, is laziness. Now, she'll tell you, oh, I'm not lazy, but you're not motivated either because you have more options than ever before. You have the freedom more than ever before. College is not meant for you guys to try to just find a job. Think of college from a completely different lens, right? Think of college from what skill set do you want to learn and what field do you want to go into to where you establish credibility that would then allow for you to leapfrog further into it. You can get more inside information to start your own firm, to start your own business, right? You have to look at school as a vehicle or a tool that gets you in the door, A, and or B, establishes credibility for you to start your own thing. But we don't look at it like that. We looked at it a lot of times like a party. We looked at it as a first sign of freedom. We looked at it, oh, we can stay in the dorms. We looked at it as, so I just want a degree. And we made a lot of mistakes. And more importantly, colleges have basically become indoctrination camps now, right? So when I see this woman say, I have to move back into my parents' basement, my parents is telling me to get serious about life. Life was life-in all throughout history. Take before the previous generation. You had the Great Depression and all of these things. They had to create industries, create jobs for themselves. That's when you seen the bakery and the butcher and the banker and the businessman, and they all had to be interdependent on each other in order to build these industries that eventually created the jobs that you so much covet, and then you think that the job is supposed to give you some level of security, when in reality, we are supposed to always be hunter-gatherers in our mentality, regardless of how technologically advanced we are, and nobody owes us anything. And so at some point, we have to grow up, which is what her parents is telling her to do, respectfully. At some point, we have to own it. A job is a means to an end. It is not supposed to be something that you define yourself by. Let me say that again for the people in the back. A job is a means to an end. It is not a way for you to define yourself as far as how you're supposed to be doing things for the rest of your life. You're there to make money. The goal is to make money so you can do what you want to do when you want to do it afterwards. That is the goal of a job. You cannot depend on anybody, but you have to establish a cultural norm. It's an exchange. You're exchanging your time and your skill set for them ultimately leveraging that skill set in order to add value into the company. And the minute that we divest ourselves from the fact that somebody owes us something or affordability or whatever, you create your own industry, you create your own lifestyle. It's not about affordability. You can go and reduce your lifestyle. You have the ability to go and live back with your parents so that you can then save more money, stack, eventually purchase your own home, all of that stuff. And so we just got to change our mindset. Our younger people, they are not motivated, which basically makes it easier for somebody to compete against them. They think that, oh man, I don't want to do corporate America. Corporate America don't necessarily want to do you either. It's just that you have to exchange so that you can be able to feed yourself, keep a roof over your head. And because we spoiled and she has the ability to go back to her parents, she's not moving with a sense of urgency, and she act like time is so meaningless when it's the most important thing that we have. We got to wake up. We got to wake up. Let me know what you think inside of the comments. Make sure you tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description. Also, teach Henley 40% off your first order plus 20% off of life. Catch me on the Millionaire Morning Show. I love you. I appreciate you. I'm going to holler at you guys later. Peace.